On November 19th, 2016, an intrigued audience gathered to watch the premiere of the documentary Gods in Shackles in San Diego's Museum of Photographic Arts in Balboa, California. The largest urban cultural park in the United States, Balboa Park includes some of the most widely visited arts and cultural institutions in the world. Nestled in the heart of Balboa Park, the Museum of Photographic Art, also known as MOPA, provides a prestigious venue for photographers and filmmakers to showcase their work to the public.
A friend of mine is part of what's putting this together, and he had a Gods in Shackles t-shirt on, and I was asking him about what the nature of that was. He said it's a movie, and he started talking about it. And because I support a number of different foundations, it was something that I felt like I could support.
Gods in Shackles is a feature-length exposé that reveals the torture of Asian elephants in religious ceremonies in India. Born and raised in the South Indian state of Kerala, the director and producer, Sangeeta Iyer, made the documentary to plead with her own people and faith to right an injustice and offer hope to thousands of wild and captive elephants used in Hindu festivals and ceremonies.
And when I started seeing that they were chained up on the foot for their whole life, of course, that broke my heart, being an animal lover. And so I started seeing more and more about the elephants, becoming aware, and wanted to take part in freeing them from slavery.
Organized by Devi Dini, Evapin Hasi, and their team, the screening of the documentary shed light on a little-known issue.
We've all been to a temple growing up as kids, seen elephants, been fascinated, thought it's the coolest thing to see an elephant in a temple. But as you grow up, you kind of become aware of, the pain, the torture, and just this basic fact that it is there, not under its own guise. This documentary is just, it's raw footage, raw commentary by Sangeeta telling us what is really the true story behind every elephant, every captive animal, be it a zoo or a park, or in this case, temples in the name of religion. Very sad.
We can learn from others and create a sanctuary in Kerala. That's the ultimate goal, as I mentioned, but it'll take some time.
An activist herself, through a nonprofit to assist African elephants, Co Lewis of the Bob and Co show on 101.5 KGB FM in San Diego, discussed with Sangeeta the deeper aspects of her vision to save the temple elephants in India.
I'm very happy to be here. I'm interviewing Sangeeta Iyer, the documentary filmmaker behind Gods in Shackles, this powerful movie that is hopefully going to change the future of the temple elephants in India. And Sangeeta, I've got to ask you, how on earth did you come about making this documentary? I know you were not looking to do this, it just kind of came into your world. How did this all come about?
Right. So thank you. That's a great question to start out with. Actually, I've always felt a soulful connection with elephants. I ended up meeting a conservationist, and we had a great connection. And I asked him, what is he doing for the elephants? And he learned that I'm really passionate about the elephants. And I asked him if there's a way I could go with him to see these wild elephants. And sure enough, next day he came and he took me to the, we were driving down the winding hills of Ooty, and all of a sudden he gets this phone call from a wildlife warden in Wayanad. We were actually going to Wayanad, And it's from the same place that he got a call. So that itself was a synchronistic event that unfolded. It was amazing. And he said that a wild tusker had fallen into a trench, tusker meaning a bull elephant. And when we went there, I was appalled at what I witnessed. This poor elephant had his 4 legs up in the air, with his vertebral column completely sank into the, and I was heartbroken to see that. And because I was with this conservationist friend, I had the opportunity to see him from such close proximity. And many people were standing there trying to rescue this bull elephant. I was blown away because if this had happened in a place like Africa, they would have immediately slaughtered the elephant, taken the tusks, and left home, you know? And here I'm witnessing thousands of people trying to rescue this elephant. And I was deeply moved. And so I was having this conversation with my friend, and he said, well, if you really want to see what they do to the elephants in India, you must come back. I said, okay, well, that kind of did not sound that promising as I thought. And I returned in December 2013. He took me to some of the temples where they used elephants. That was my first adult experience. Elephants with massive tumors, and their legs were so severely shackled with real short chains. They were bleeding, raw bleeding wounds out of their ankles. Some of them were blind elephants, and some of them were carrying so many people on their backs, like 3, 4, 5 people, plus the numerous hundreds of pounds of, heavy chains, plus the ornaments. And, Asian elephants, they have a very tender spine because their spine protrudes. And on the spine, can you imagine if you had so many people on that very delicate, tender spine sitting. And I said, and being a biologist, I said, this is absolutely unacceptable. But even then, I didn't know that I would be producing a documentary. I had a mini camera with me. I gathered about 25 hours of footage. I returned home and I started viewing them, and I'm like, what do I do with this now? How can I disseminate this information? I called a television media colleague, and he said, we absolutely have to do something about this. I showed him the footage. He said, why don't you launch a crowdsourcing campaign? And I did in the month of March. And as they say, the rest is history, because then I returned to India in May, and I filmed the mother of all festivals, as they call it. This was the Trishur Puram festival of 2014. And so began a journey that I'm still coming to grips with. And, it's clearly something that was orchestrated by the divine intelligence.
The suffering of the elephants, combined with Sangeeta's vision for change, inspired audience members to take action.
I learned that there's a lot of cruelty going on. We don't see. I know a lot of people like to go to India, ride the elephant, see their tradition, but they don't realize what's going on behind the scenes. And it was very sad. Just mainly spreading the word is what I can do, and I like to travel, and I probably wouldn't promote or go to a travel agency that promotes that type of behavior.
Many in the audience were deeply moved by the atrocities committed against these highly social and emotional elephants.
So we just saw the documentary. It was absolutely incredible. I've been aware of what's been going on with elephants, especially in Thailand, because I had gone to visit there and I was aware of how they were treating the elephants there, so we refused to do the typical thing like riding the elephants, and we were really aware of it. But I have not been to India, and I haven't been aware of what's happening here. So I'm really happy to be exposed to this and open my eyes to what's going on in India as well. Even being here, living here, the documentary Blackfish made a huge dent, and you'll still see people protesting outside SeaWorld. So it's just a matter of getting more and more people on board and knowing what's happening.
So you all of a sudden see this antagonistic stance of the treatment of animals, of elephants in India. Here you see out in the countryside how they're rushing to rescue this animal, that they revere this animal, and then you see in the city, under the auspices of religion and tradition, the horrific treatment of these animals. They are breaking their spirit, they're breaking their bodies, all in the name of tradition because it's been done for so long. So I can see where you're absolutely emotionally in a tug of war of like, how is this the same country and why these are the same animals, why is there such a difference? So you're a woman in India. You decided to take on this task of telling their story, and you put film and this documentary together. So doing this movie, what was the thing that was the most inspirational takeaway for you?
So absolutely the paradoxes were stark. On the one hand, I had witnessed the rescue of a wild elephant, and on the other hand, I'm seeing the same bull elephants being enslaved, emasculated, literally. They were emasculated, and they were enslaved by men who consider displaying a bull elephant as masculine by almost feminizing the male elephant with jewelry and ornaments. And so that in itself, another stark paradox. And so as a woman, one of the things that worked in my favor is that I was a curious journalist, and I did not antagonize anybody. I was really trying to understand where they're coming from. That's one of the things you do as a journalist, is to try and understand all sides of the story. And so I started meeting people, festival organizers, even the elephant owners who are considered to be the so-called elephant mafias. And I was asking innocent questions because I really wanted to know what was going on in their head. What exactly were they doing to these elephants? Why, what kind of cultural connection did this have at all? I even did a lot of research and found that there's absolutely not a single Hindu scripture that ever mentions use of elephants in festivals. To the contrary, Lord Ganesha, who has, the face of an elephant, he's considered to be, elephants are considered to be the embodiment of Lord Ganesh. And so that was in itself, I was trying to explain to them, there is no cultural connection. So where is your thinking? What's going on? And I understood, and I, dug in, and I discovered that it is everything to do with commerce and nothing to do with the culture or festivals. Even ancient traditions, they would use 1 or 2 elephants in the temples, but they would use them not to make money. They were treated as part of the family, as you may or may not know, but elephants have been a cultural icon for centuries in India. When we didn't have these sophisticated weapons of destruction, elephants were used in wars. Elephants were also used for logging because we didn't have the sophisticated machinery at the time. And so elephants have always been entrenched with Indian culture. However, to the extent that they are being exploited and enslaved and tortured for profit alone, because you see, once the war all of this advanced technology came into effect, elephants had no use, and yet they had all these captive elephants, and they didn't know what to do with them. So the way it probably emerged is they were using 3, 4, 5 elephants at a time, and then they started capturing wild elephants. That's when we started experiencing a dramatic shift in the sex ratios, because you have one bull elephant for 80 or 90 female elephants in certain areas. That could create severe genetic disorders. And what that means is the future survival of these incredibly intelligent and sentient beings comes under severe threat. And so there's a lot of layers that I needed to sort of unpack and see, okay, on the one hand, you have the cultural connections, which definitely cannot be denied. The ecological connections, the biological interdependence and interconnections cannot be ignored. And that is where I felt that a powerful education needs to be launched. And so what I did in this documentary was not only presented the torture and enslavement of these elephants, but also juxtapositioning how they live in the wild, so people get a better understanding of the fact that elephants can never be tamed, that cultural festivities never existed as people say that it did, that there are no Hindu scriptures, or any scriptures for that matter, because once Hindu people started doing this, Christians and Muslims also started saying, well, we need the economic piece of the pie.
Motivated to learn more, attendees moved to claim their seats in a packed theater to watch the movie with the director. For many in the audience, the documentary Gods in Shackles touched a nerve and brought out deep sympathy for the temple elephants suffering under tortuous conditions.
There are so many solutions that we have on our planet today. For everything, we have a solution. But the reason that people are not applying it is because it's too difficult. Whatever is convenient and easy, is what people, those are the things that people always gravitate to. It's the natural human tendency.
For everyone, the truth of the ongoing suffering remains difficult to bear.
And if I have to learn how to handle these elephants with love and caring, I think that would be my life's ultimate mission. And if I can do that and bring that back to India and share it with these mahouts and regain their trust and tell them I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to show that you're bad guys, but what you are doing is still bad. But you're not bad guys, it's just that you don't know what you're doing. So to educate them in that manner and to teach them alternative way of treating these elephants.
The event attracted many curious newcomers to the cause.
I help with I toss money towards fundraisers with animal cultivation stuff, and I am a big animal lover. I try to help take care of animals in any way, shape, or form I can.
A really good friend of mine, Beth Zedeker, is a very good friend of one of the women who's sponsoring the event, and so it's a passion of hers, and so we thought we would check it out. We've heard a little bit about the plight of elephants from our friend Beth, that we kind of have some background that it's going to be some disturbing footage in the movie, that there's kind of to bring an awareness of what's happening, and of course we're aware of the fact that Ringling Brothers no longer has the elephants in their circus, and so some of the awareness that's been happening for the mistreatment of particularly of elephants, and we love I'm an elephant lover.
With the documentaries we see, for me it's a lot of what's on Netflix. Sometimes I'll do some scans through like a Google search of like top environmental documentary, and that's more if I go to iTunes. and watch it. But any chance I can get, I try to be informed around these types of issues through documentaries.
My husband and I, we do our bit to contribute every year to the World Wildlife Fund, National Geographic, Wildlife SOS, Blue Cross of India. There's a lot of animal welfare organizations close to our heart. And I personally am involved in one organization called Chal USA. It's a non-profit. I'm the vice president. We have 3 other people on the board, and we collect funds here in the US and all the rest of the world. We donate the money to animal welfare organizations in India to spay, neuter, and give rabies vaccine to stray dogs. So rabies elimination, eradication, and stray dog welfare.
So let me ask you, with Gods in Shackles, I'll ask you 2 things. I want to ask you, what was the global take on this movie? And then I'm going to ask you what the take was in India itself. What was your reaction when you took this movie around the world?
On a global scale, people were shocked because this is an epic documentary produced in a manner that has never been done before, because we engaged various perspectives, including the owners and the temple authorities. Actually, there is a Hindu priest who came forward and he rejected this kind of use of elephants. So it presents a scientific, religious, as well as ecological perspectives. But over and beyond that, I have even interviewed the mahouts, the handlers, as well as the owners. And it is very unique on so many levels because I unpack the differences between how traditionally they were used as opposed to how they're being exploited commercially. And so there has been in the past some mention here and there, but not at all to the extent that we had. So globally, people were absolutely shocked to view the movie. It has been screened in many states here in the US, and people are just totally, they never had any idea of the magnitude of the crisis. And so the thing is, on that scale, on that same note, the support has also been tremendous, because now that people have already seen on a global scale as to the atrocities being committed against them, the commitment and dedication to bring this movie into India and other parts of the world where these elephants are being used for religious reasons is completely supported, and I'm deeply honored by the support I'm receiving on a global scale.
So Sangeeta, what was the reaction in India? I mean, how did they take it?
In India, there's been a mixed reception. So let me go right into Kerala, which is the ground zero of elephant torture. They have 600 captive elephants, the largest number of captive elephants throughout India, and indeed, I would be, I want to say around the world, but Kerala has the largest number of captive elephants in India, and most of them are bull elephants. And so fortunately, again, I talked about the divine intervention and the divine guidance. The month that I was screening the documentary, which was June of 2016, they had a new government. A brand new government was elected just 15 days before I went to Kerala. This government seemed to be a little bit more progressive. So I go to Kerala with a lot of apprehensions, concerned about my own security. And indeed, to that extent, I had not even considered my own security until some of the people surrounding me had said, you should be really careful about your own security. And a couple of security companies had even denied giving me any service because they felt that this was too risky an endeavor that I had undertaken. So I went there with a great deal of apprehension and fear. And I had a few journalist friends, and one of them said, I know the Speaker of the General Assembly. Why don't you just approach him and ask whether he'd be willing to even view the documentary? And then if he views it, you can ask if he can screen it in some capacity and include the decision makers. So again, with a great deal of fear and apprehension, I somehow managed to meet the speaker, and he had his secretary screen the entire documentary, and I watched there, observing her reaction, and I was like convinced completely that people had no idea what these elephants were going through. And she relayed what she watched. And then I met the speaker and I said, now let's take it a level further. Would you consider screening it on the legislature's grounds? And he said, absolutely. I was so honored to simply have him acknowledge that there is an issue, and over and beyond that, help me present it to the decision makers. That could not have happened without the divine intervention. Again, I say that over and over because I feel like I'm just being used as a vessel, as an instrument to just carry the work that has been assigned to me. There are so many such incidents that occurred. Now, when the audience watched the movie, again, they were also shocked. The decision makers, some of whom watched it, they were absolutely blown away by the magnitude of the crisis. And yet, there are so many deniers, which is not uncommon. The climate deniers in our Western world, similar to these kind of deniers that we encounter, some of them started tarnishing my credibility and saying things that were just unacceptable, and I had to defend myself by posting stuff on the Huffington Post, presenting them exactly what happened. And because some of the owners felt that I deceived them into giving interviews because they saw that, I had interviewed them and their interviews were presented. Although I had initially mentioned clearly to them, the name of the movie is called Gods in Shackles. How much clearer can you become? I had them sign all of the release agreements, everything. So everything was presented in a very authentic, genuine, and professional manner. But I don't think they expected the impact that it would have. And now that it has had such a tremendous impact, there's a backlash. So what they did then, so it's like you take 5 steps forward and 10 steps backward. Within the last 2 months that I've not been in Kerala, these owners have somehow managed to return and manipulate the state government. And now the state government has said, well, you guys can have festivities and, everything is almost back to normal. But they say that we are implementing strict enforcements. That has yet to be seen, and so that's where we stand at the moment.
After watching the deeply moving documentary, Sangeeta answered emotional and thought-provoking questions from the touched audience.
But doesn't the government see what's going on? Like the other country in the documentary, they're switching to other ways of displaying tradition. I mean, Yeah, that's a good question too, and the government is in bed with this whole thing. That's the bottom line. There are so many layers of issues, including corruption. It is rampant, as I expressed earlier, and although India has 60% of the Asian elephants, many of them are being captured and used in cultural situations, as you saw, and they justify it. They keep justifying it. At the end of the day, what happens is they would say, well, elephants have been used for the last many centuries. Well, of course they were. They were used when there were no advanced technologies. We didn't have the weapons of destruction at the time. So they used to use elephants during wars. They didn't have the machinery we have, so they used to use elephants for logging. Now there's no need for those elephants. So what do you do with them when the culture is so deeply entrenched with these elephants?
Well, sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. Yep. And you have to find ways to say, okay, well, if that's the way you see it, what if I came in with this idea? And you've got a whole group of people who think out of the box. When you deal with compassionate people, especially in animal welfare, you're dealing with people who will find a way to get it solved. So don't ever let that be a hindrance. In fact, when somebody says no, I'm like, really? Okay, that's my mission to combat it.
At the reception, experienced experts, and eager newcomers mingled over drinks and vegan refreshments.
Well, you know, they say if you are getting backlash and creating drama and chaos, that means it's working. So as much as you feel like you've felt resistance and you've got people trying to cover up everything you've done and, you know, kind of diminish the power of it, it means you're making an impact, and that is something you need to just keep moving forward on, because you know you're on the right track then. With the making of Gods in Shackles, is this where the creation of Voice for Asian Elephants came from, or did you have that idea before this?
So Voice for Asian Elephants Society is a nonprofit organization that we have just established, and the main aim is to enlighten people, because as we have seen when I presented the documentary, people had no clue as to the magnitude of the problem. And so that is number one. And I knew absolutely that a mass education and awareness campaign needs to be launched. Outreach is critical in order to make sure that we make a difference in the lives of these elephants. And even though the documentary presents a balanced perspective and factual information, we need to ensure that this message remains ingrained in their mind, because I can leave and you'll have others come and brainwash them, and it's almost like a revolving door. You got to keep outreach alive and well. So that's one of the main intentions, main aims of my organization. The second one is to then empower the owners and the mahouts and offer them alternatives, because they have the right to defend what they're saying, because we are essentially pulling the plug, pulling their economic rug, and they're left with nothing. So unless and until we offer an alternative, we can't see any changes that we hope to achieve. And so the alternative I'm going to offer them is to say, you guys are leasing out these elephants for the temple festivals. Why don't you lease out your elephants for my sanctuary? On an annual basis, I will pay you a certain amount of money and lease them out where they wander shackle-free. Now they're wandering shackled and enslaved. Here in the sanctuary, it's a totally different ecotouristic approach, where we are going to invite and engage more tourists, and we are going to also give opportunities to many industries. Ayurveda, as many people have known here in the Western world, is a wonderful traditional massage therapy kind of healing path that people are following around the world. And so there are opportunities for Ayurvedic massage parlors. Vegan and vegetarian food is becoming popular. More and more people are becoming vegetarian. So we can have restaurant industries, construction boom. There are so many industries that will benefit out of working together collaboratively, whereas right now only the owners and the brokers are minting money, and the temple authorities can also come and participate, and we can offer them alternatives. So essentially that is the main crux of what we're hoping to achieve out of this. And yes, to answer your question about whether it was an offshoot of Gods in Shackles, I did have to have an outlet as to how do you conduct your outreach and yet offer even the contributors and donors some kind of appreciation, at least some kind of tax benefits. And a lot of my supporters are Americans. Americans are such wonderful philanthropists, and many of them, even the ones that have organized the screening here in San Diego, Debbie Deeney, she is a wonderful supporter. I'm so immensely honored to have her support this campaign to a level that San Diego is almost sold out now. The event is almost sold out. She did a tremendous outreach program. She recognized immediately the power of outreach, and even the people who are filming it, she just gathered such an awesome team of people to make an outreach out of the outreach campaign. and figure out how we can continue to do this. She's created an amazing ripple effect and introduced you, Ko, to this wonderful organization. And I'm deeply honored to be sitting here and being interviewed by you. The work that you do in Africa is tremendous, and we are all on the same path to make a difference in the lives of these animals and engage people to help them understand that without these various other beings, we are dismantling this incredible web of life that has been given to us, and Mother Nature needs our help right now. We are 7.4 billion and counting, and we're, categorically, decimating all of the species because there's this sense of entitlement, everything instilled by religion, because religions from various walks of life, that is Christianity, Hinduism, they have somehow instilled this sense that humans have domain over nature. Genesis, for instance, says something similar to that. I don't want to quote exactly what it is, but in Genesis there's something that says to the effect of you have been given domain over nature and all of its creatures, whereas the Bible also has amazing proverbs, amazing verses that talks about us being a steward of what God has given us. We have an obligation to protect what God has given us. So all of these various organisms that weave together this incredible tapestry of life is what we need to make sure that we keep intact, and that's what this is all about.
You're absolutely right. I mean, if we are the stewards of this planet, 60% of the species have been wiped out in the last 50 years, and that apparently we're not doing a very good job as stewards. And you're right, and I think the tack that you're taking, dealing with the economics, money talks no matter what the situation is, and I think if you give these mahouts and the owners opportunities to improve their situation financially by doing the right thing, that might change their psyche. That might change the fabric of how they look at things. It's a fundamental change. And I think that you have shown a light on this situation. You are now offering alternatives, and you simply have to stay the course, Sangeeta. You are on the right path. You say you're a vessel, but you're an inspiration to so many people.
Oh, thank you.
And the work you do. This is a very difficult subject matter. So how can someone help your cause? How people want change and want to know how to create change. How can they help you?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And people can participate in whatever way they want to support our organization. We have a website called www.voiceforasianelephantsociety.org. They can go there and support us in any which way they can. They can also log on to godsinshackles.com, where we always keep them updated as to what events are happening around the world. If anybody's interested to host, we have a team that will qualify them. And, if things work out the way we hope, and if they do the things that we suggest based on our experiences, we're more than happy to partner with as many people as possible.
Sangeeta, I'm so honored to speak with you. I'm so proud of what you've achieved. You've taken on this Herculean task, and you've done you've created this powerful, emotional, and moving movie. And I'm thrilled, and we're all behind you. We hope change is created. We want you to be like the steward for the elephants of India, and I can't tell you how many people are rooting for you to have great success. And before we go, you've got to tell us about the big news you got with the Indian Film Festival.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for all the good wishes, and I really appreciate it. And I'm not sure if you know, but Gods in Shackles was also nominated at the United Nations. It was nominated.
Magnificent.
Thank you. It was nominated by the International Elephant Film Festival, and the United Nations CITES secretary, he announced that it has been nominated at the United States General Assembly on March the 9th of 2016 during the World Wildlife Day, annual World Wildlife Day. So it was a tremendous honor. Wow. And now at the International Film Festival of India, which is the most prestigious film festival of India. It is the officially run film festival by the government of India, has been running for 47 years plus, and it is being screened on the 27th of November at 11 o'clock. And I'm very excited, and the ramifications are awesome because they're going to have some heavyweight champions and heavyweight stars and Bollywood actors and actresses, and I'm hoping and praying that that can be used as a pulpit to really spread the word and awaken the people of India to say, listen, your heritage animal, your embodiment of Lord Ganesh is suffering, and you guys need to wake up and do the right thing.
Though difficult at times to watch, the documentary Gods in Shackles captured the gruesome reality of the suffering of the temple elephants, but also showed what each one of us can do to be a part of the solution.
I think mainly just spreading the word to, social media, passing on things. I'm not sure how I can help, but I'd like to learn more how I can help. Donating. We donated tonight, and so I think that's what I'm going to start with.
I believe it's necessary to show some of those dark elements to, it's almost like for a shock factor. People really need to be educated around actually what's happening. And as I turn my head for a lot of those images, but I think it's necessary to, really show people what's happening.
So what she's shown us is very personal to a lot of Indians, meaning, we all go to temples, we're all God-fearing people, and, nobody wants to harm another animal or another human being. And this, I think, what she's pointed out very beautifully and very sadly is nobody knows what goes on behind the scenes. This is undercover footage. This is like what Blackfish did for, the killer whales, or what, factory farming had, all this footage that they did undercover to expose the cruel practices. And hopefully, what I would do is tell a lot of people, tell my fellow Indians, tell people here who go on tourism to India, avoid these places, and tell my fellow people in India to speak up, to go to their local temple and say, we don't need this elephant here in this facility anymore. Let's, get him out of this place, him or her out of this place, and, we just need to worship God.
I'm all for animal rights. I think they deserve to have the rights before we do.
Yeah. The silent auction provided an additional platform for patrons to express their solidarity with Sangeeta's vision to stop the mistreatment of Asian elephants in Kerala.
Taking it a few steps further, and with the support of people like yourselves, we can continue to do this. So thank you so much.
She can do it. She can do it. Thank you, Sangeeta.
To learn more, visit godsinshackles.com and follow the link to learn how you can contribute to the cause through a simple donation.
We're rooting for you, Sangeeta.
Thank you.
Gods in Shackles, an amazing and powerful movie.
Thank you.
And we wish you only the best and may the world change because of it. Oh boy, more power to you on that one. Good luck. Fingers crossed. We know you're going to do great.
Awesome.
We're proud of you, Sangeeta. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you so
it.
much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well, first off, I want to thank all of you for coming. I feel like I almost know you because I reached out to so many of you directly to come to the event, and I really appreciate the support. It would be remiss of me to not thank Sangeeta first for trusting me to actually host this event here in San Diego, because she is a phenomenal force to reckon with, and she only needs people like that on her team, and I'm very honored to do this for her, so thank you, Sangeeta.
In every turn throughout history, we have thought we were better than other beings who do not have a voice of their own. But some of us have begun to understand how cruel human action could be, and how it could result in shattering beauty. Life is not about where you live or how rich you are. It's about who you share it with. Often, to know how to love another human being begins with learning how to love animals. Elephants cherish life as much as men do. Just as we feel happiness and pain, so do other creatures. If we want to help make the world a better place, we must unite against those who abuse the voiceless and become the voice for the animals. It's not too late. Maybe you can be a part of creating a better future. This video is brought to you by San Diego City College radio, television, and film students.